This is TWiT.
When you mentioned court, I thought you were talking about the Epic trial yesterday, where I was just reading through it, watching the judge just smack these people around. Like
that's the parental thing. All right, well, let's talk about the Rebel Alliance. I'm sorry. What is the name that they should have called themselves?
They're not the Rebel Alliance. The Rebel Alliance were fighting for the rights of the people.
The Coalition for App Fairness.
These are a group of billionaires who are angry at trillionaires for not making it easier for them to become the trillionaires and just want to use us differently.
It was kind of like hard to watch. It was a real cringe sort of thing where the judge was like motion after like point after point after point saying, Epic, but that's not what you did. Said, okay, but you're saying that it's because of rightness and valiantness, but you asked for this fight and now you're complaining that you got the fight that you asked for. Or say, okay, you're complaining about security, but that's not it's hard to think that they got anything. The only piece of remotely good news that I could pick apart from the entire hearing was that the judge doesn't want to can't hear this until July of next year, and secondly, she is inclined to make this like a jury proceeding so that if it's all based exactly I'm not even joking. It's like if it were just based on here is a judge who knows what the law is and has a really good view on here is what the court is supposed to be used for and here's what it's not supposed to be used for. This was not a good day for Epic. But if they can still convince random people who are not tech people that, hey, let me tell you about freedom. Let me tell you about the ability
So you're saying they're really the Empire pretending to be the Rebel Alliance?
No, but the worst part was where the judge called for the second part of the trial, and the Epic lawyer actually says out loud, "Well, I didn't do so well in that first part."
Judge,
you said the quiet part out loud.
We should give her credit.
You got to own it at some point.
This is Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers of the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. Here is a quote from CNN. You did something. You lied about it by omission, by not being forthcoming. That's the security issue. That's the security issue. There are a lot of people in the public who consider you guys heroes for what you guys did, but it's still not honest. Ooh, ow, spanked.
Yeah. Burn. And that was one of the nicer ways she put it.
Judge Roberts, according to CNN, was not particularly persuaded by Epic's that's a nice way to put it, by Epic's argument that Apple bundled its App Store and in-app payment system together in violation of antitrust law. She also said she did not necessarily agree with Epic that Apple has harmed its ability to distribute Fortnite. Walled gardens, said the judge, this is actually, remember we said when we learned it was Judge Gonzalez, we said that, this is going to be, she's not a fool. She understands this stuff.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Walled gardens, she said, have existed for decades. She clearly understands what's going on here. Nintendo has had a walled garden. Sony has had a walled garden. Microsoft has had a walled garden. What Apple's doing is not much different. It's hard to ignore the economics of the industry, which is what you're asking me to do.
She understands it better than the U.S. Congress.
It's kind of remarkable.
I'm not even joking about that. Yeah, she's got a deep knowledge of it. Yeah.
Well, my opinion is just that I don't know necessarily that Epic has a case. I think that it's worthwhile to at least have the argument that this is what the industry does. This is an industry practice has not always carried water with a judge. I mean, coincidentally we were talking about Coming to America. Art Buchwald. I forget what the origins of the case were, but one of the writers sued based on Hollywood accounting, saying that, well, look, you're telling me that this movie that has grossed $1.8 billion according to their own PR, the studio's own PR company, according to like the net profit that I have been issued, I've made 18 cents on this over 15 years. The defense that the studios provided was, well, this is standard practice, and the judge said, yeah, but your standard practice is crap. You're gonna have to come up with another idea. So I've always thought that it was worthwhile to have this standard industry practice at least tested in court for someone Again, maybe a little bit more agile than Epic to make the argument that perhaps there needs to be some more flexibility in this model, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they would even win that argument. But I've wanted this sort of discussion just so that we can say that, look, this concept has had its day in court, because I am troubled by parts of the way that these industries are run. I'm pleased to hear that Google has announced that for Android 12, they're going to make it easier to make users hook up to different app stores. They're still insisting on Google's payment systems for things that go through the Play Store, but I do think that the opening up of a device to alternative app stores is something that could benefit users greatly. And so, again, I welcome at least the legal argument to say that, to put some pressure on Apple to say, here is why we are forcing everybody to buy all of their software from our store and making it impossible for people to use software from any other store.
By the way, the second completely independent reference to the 1988 movie Coming to America, and they say the universe is random. Buchwald said
we plan all this. We do 2 hours of rehearsal for every half hour of this show.
How can you come back to Coming to America? Let's think about it. Buchwald alleged that Paramount stole the idea. They said, well, we don't owe you anything. It earned no net profit, even though it made $288 million. Right. They gave him $900,000, which I think is a fair price. I mean, that's a column, so
But they do that all the time. They always make a new company that then leases back all the assets to the main company.
So so clever. Here's the real question. By the way, the judge said, I prefer a jury trial. So however sophisticated the judge might be, it does throw everything up in the air, because a jury trial.
She also offered escrow, and Apple said yes, and Epic is like, no, it was money that we walked away from. We want it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're going to get it. She also says that given her schedule, the case won't go to trial till July of next year. So a jury trial in July, perhaps. The judge skeptical. But the judge
Epic is not the Batman we wanted or needed.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's not that the app. So that's the question I guess I want to ask, which is, did she say this diminished the App Store in any way, or just merely that Epic isn't the right person to pursue this? She said a finding in Epic's behavior. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is Apple's lawyer. Never mind.
Right. I think Epic was asking for a lot of relief, all of which were completely denied. And basically gave the judge the opportunity to say, here is a laundry list of all the different arguments that you're going to have to provide the math for before you insist on the harm to the industry, the harm to yourself, the harm to consumers. They're also just simply the idea of antitrust is very, very well defined. There's a lot of precedent to call upon, and so it's going to be Epic is going to have to come up with something stronger than we know antitrust when we see it, and we're looking at it right now, Apple. And so, yeah.
So she has not yet ruled on the injunction, but just based on the way she responded on yesterday, it doesn't look good for Epic, but we still have to wait for that. And then they'll set a trial date. So even the injunction is just a temporary decision.
I thought Epic was so smart at the beginning. I thought they were so tactical when they originally sued Apple, but not Google. Mm-hmm. And then they sued Google. I'm like, that feels like a misstep, because you kind of want more of the Google. And then they just one thing after another. It feels like Tim Epic has a hissy fit against Tim Apple, instead of this being like a real precise, like Basecamp did a better job of litigating this than Epic did.
Well, Basecamp is in the Rebel Alliance, the Coalition for App Fairness, includes Epic, Spotify, Tile, of course. CEO testified against Apple in front of Congress, saying we can't compete with what Apple's doing. Basecamp is in there. They had the Hey.com email app, which, by the way, I think sank without a trace anyway, despite the huge amount of publicity they got. And Apple eventually kind of conceding.
Some people who really like it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I tried it,
didn't do anything for me. Blix is involved. I don't know what Blix is. Blockchain, Deezer, another music company. This is how you know this is not the Rebel Alliance. The European Publishers Council, Match. I'm not sure if that's Match the magazine or Match the app. I don't know.
No, it's the Tinder people.
News Media Europe, Prepare, Proton Mail, and Sky Demon. Most of these.
The thing that's so interesting to me
so
is
these
that.
are all,
Go ahead, Lory. First, Lory, and then you.
These are all companies that are saying that they can't compete because Apple is too big. Like, what's their argument? What are they saying is bad about?
They say it's anti-competitive. Here's their demands. They say no developer should be required to use the App Store exclusively. You should be allowed to sell independently of that. Every developer should always have access to the app stores. Every developer should always have the right to communicate directly with its user through its app. Apple also prohibits that. By the way, it's not about communicating directly to the user through the app. It's about getting the user information.
Right.
Which Apple blocks for privacy reasons, right?
Right. Yeah.
No app store. And this is the problem with all this. It's a little mealy-mouthed. It's like, oh, we just want to communicate directly with the user. No. Everybody understands what you really want is the user information so you can make a mailing list or marketing, sell it more. No app store owner or its platform should engage in self-preferencing its own apps or services. That, to me, is the antitrust issue. And the judge, by the way, did not buy into that. But is Apple somehow preferring its own apps? In other words, as an example, did they block xCloud, Microsoft's streaming gaming service, because they want you to use Arcade instead? Yeah. And I think that is somewhere that you could go with this in an antitrust. No developer should be required to pay unfair, reasonable, or discriminatory fees or revenue shares. I don't think that holds water because 30% is kind of the standard across the board everywhere. Right. And I don't think it is unfair. It's a reasonable amount of money. So the big one to me is this notion of, is Apple somehow behaving anti-competitively?
Well, they also wanted access to all the developer stuff the minute that Apple has it, which seems just logistically
we got to write the book first. What are you talking about?
That's a Hail Mary you put in the filing no matter what.
I think maybe Epic hired the wrong lawyer.
The thing that's interesting to me is that platforms don't have to be based on devices or based on operating systems. And we're seeing increasingly what's happening with YouTube and even OnlyFans and a bunch of different social networks that are more creator-centric. And I would not be shocked if next year we hear that Ninja is suing Epic because he wants his own skin and emote store inside Fortnite. He brings in so much revenue. They shouldn't. And also that maybe Drake or maybe Taylor Swift wants their own subscription premium service inside Spotify because Spotify is so big. They're the platform.
There's an excellent way to kind of turn the tables on this.
I doubt it.
Right.
That's it. That you may as well say that I'm going to sue Coca-Cola for having
not that it would happen, but he's saying it's an example of the same thing, right? And so that's a reach. That's absurd.
I think those services get bigger and bigger. They own more and more of the market, and then it becomes unfeasible to launch a product if you're not part of those services. And then if you're a really powerful, that's what Epic is doing. They're saying we're really powerful.
Right.
It's infeasible to launch anything outside the App Store or the Google Play Store. So we should have our own thing. And Ninja and Taylor Swift and all these people are going to get so big that they're going to say it's not feasible. You own the customer. We want to have a direct relationship, and we want to have our own billing service on your platform. And
what about there's one other potential avenue that I kind of agree with, which is that Apple seems to be somewhat inconsistent or unfair in enforcing its App Store policies. And what Epic's pointing at chiefly is the deal that Eddie Q made with Amazon, clearly kind of undermining their 30%.
And maybe again with Luna, we don't know.
Yeah, with Amazon's new gaming service. Yeah, is that good? That's going to be on iOS, but that's going to be somebody. Mike was saying that's a progressive web app. Is that not the case?
It's browser based, yeah.
So that Apple wouldn't have any control of anyway, right? I mean, we've even said if Epic could make Fortnite a browser based game, they wouldn't have a problem.
Yes.
So the fact, I don't know how I think that takes it out of that. Nevertheless, it's pretty clear that Eddie Q made a deal with Amazon because all of a sudden Amazon's back on the store and stuff, not to take that full 30% cut. Am I right, Rene? Is that?
They created a new they say it's not a new category, but nobody knew about it before.
There's only two other people in that category.
Yes,
Alcatel
and Amazon. Premium video services.
Yeah. So I think that's also another avenue. So I think there's two avenues you could reasonably pursue, and maybe Epic made a strategic mistake by not going at those. Which is fine if you're a
small company. It's just not fine if you're Apple. Like all that wheeling dealing is exactly what Apple did for a decade and a half when they had no market share.
Right.
It becomes problematic only when you have so much market share.
Right.
Yeah. There's, I think the bottom line here is that there is a lot of really good arguments to be made. There's a lot that Apple should be made to explain. It's just too bad that I really think that Epic had the early part of their planning was, oh, let's do a parody of the 1984 video, and we'll have one of our Fortnite players be the woman with the sledgehammer, and they did something that was flashy as opposed to effective, because one of the things we haven't discussed is that we touched on it just a little bit, is that developers need to have the ability to establish a relationship with their own customers, and that's yes, it's possible for a developer to sign up a user for all kinds of marketing stuff, but the thing is, I don't know any developer who says, I think it's great that I can't talk to my users directly. I think it's great that when there's this big layer between me and the customer service that I need to be able to perform for these people, and that is something that I really think that Apple needs to address. Apple also needs to address, if I'm giving you 30% and you're promising me a very, very safe place to do business, you have to give me that safe place to do business. You can't allow knockoffs of my app to ever make it into the App Store, on and on and on. It's just a shame that you have one of these flashy these flashy like TV lawyers filing this lawsuit, as opposed to metaphorically speaking, they did hire kind of a dream team of antitrust lawyers to prepare this case, but it feels like they've got this flashy TV lawyer who wants the soundbite, who wants the press conference afterward.
It's easy.
They don't want the win.
Basically, we're being Tuesday morning quarterbacks, because now that the judge has gone whap, it's easy to say, "Oops, that might not have been the best strategy." Maybe they didn't know that going in.
It's only stupid if it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, then that was very stupid, or you were very unlucky.
We have the benefit of knowing what the judge was going to say, and honestly, it isn't that much what the judge is going to say. 'Cause if it's a jury trial, obviously the judge has a lot of influence on the jury. But if it's a jury trial, it may be Epic's and their attorneys just kind of feeling that, well, normal people are going to buy this. Normal people are going to get it. I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah.
We'll see. In come August 2021, we can say, see, that was a bad strategy.
Yeah.
If it gets, do you think it'll settle?
I think that if Epic wants to continue to make money off of Fortnite, I don't think that they can afford to have this benched for an entire year. I think
that's right.
I think that most.
I bet you that's what the judge was thinking when she said, "I'm really busy, so we're going to hold this off till next July." Is a code for, you better get this solved now.
We're going to hurt both of you until you fix this.
Yeah.
I keep remembering what a lawyer was telling me a few years ago, that most non criminal legal proceedings are basically about two lawyers hashing out a deal between each other, and then telling the judge what they agreed upon. And that's kind of what the court system in these kind of cases is designed to work for. Because it's like, look, you don't want we don't want to have to put your case on the docket.
That's why she said jury. No, you can't predict a jury. Yeah. No one wants to do that. And I've been in this situation only once. I never, ever, ever want to go into a lawyer's boardroom with my attorneys and their attorneys and do the negotiation. It's the worst, and it's cutthroat, and it's a nightmare. But the stick is, or we could go to court. That's always a stick,
And if you win, they'll just appeal, and we'll be off for another 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Nobody wants that.
Right.
Even Apple and Samsung eventually settled. For God's sake, yes. Popeye and Pluto settled their differences rather than continue in the courts.
Well, actually, that's a good point. There is no urgency on Apple's point of view. They don't care. It's all on Epic.
They're losing a little bit of Fortnite.
It's all the money that they're losing every single day. That
money is more meaningful to Fortnite than Apple.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really from Apple's perspective. That's a really fluid thing. Like today it's Fortnite, but yesterday it was Minecraft, and tomorrow it'll be the next new thing. From Apple's perspective, they're not. I don't think they're stressing about how much money they're going to lose off of the 30% that Fortnite would make, because they can just move on to the next.
Well, and that's why
game.
I've always said it really, if anybody has standing in this, it's Microsoft and xCloud. And I'm really wondering, because that's the one where Apple might
and Stadia.
They have a hard time explaining themselves.
Yeah. But Microsoft
it
and
feels
Google
like they don't get
it
though. Like it feels less like malice to me and more like incompetence. And I don't mean that in like an accusatory tone. I don't think Apple understands like at a deep level that this is the next Netflix, because they allow Netflix, even though they have TV, they have iTunes, didn't bother them. They said Netflix was fine. There's Spotify, even though there's Apple Music. I really don't think they care about Apple Arcade enough. They'd make a ton of revenue off revenue sharing for whatever it's called now, Game Pass, but they just don't understand that it's a streaming service. They think it has to be apps, therefore it has to be in these little cubicles they've designed for apps, and they're missing the ability to think just one step beyond what they think they know.
Yeah. The biggest issue that Apple's not going to lose any money off of this, but their one weakness, and this is where TikTok kind of screwed the pooch and not figuring out how to best press an advantage, is that the government, there is a bipartisan push to get every company that makes, let's say, over $1 trillion under the heel of tighter legislation. And the only real arrow in the government's quiver against Apple is how it runs the App Store. So it's no surprise that Spotify jumped on board this really, really quickly, while a lot of people who feel as though they've been pushed around by Apple have been jumping on board of this, because they have grievances that Apple may have too much power over certain markets, and they want the government to be very, very aware of that. So this is it doesn't even matter who gets elected, who is our president next January. This is a bipartisan effort in the federal government and every state of state government, individual attorneys general. If Apple does not need this kind of distraction. Apple does not need this kind of fire to have to operate under if they're going to be in this very, very hostile environment in 2021 and 2022. And so Epic is kind of throwing this away. We'll still hear about it, but they could have really, really created a situation where Apple is going to be so sufficiently embarrassed, where Apple could have seen this as a chance of, we were largely unaware of the grievances of these large companies, but of course, once they made these grievances known, we were more than happy to adjust our long-standing App Store. So of course, we have no interest in controlling these markets, because look how fair we were when they came to us with these grievances, and now that opportunity has kind of been lost.